Have you figured out your niche? Are you helping adding value to other people's lives? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Munira's Musings with your host, Munira Zahabi.
So greetings from Chicagoland. This is the Niche Navigator coming to you live on Munira's Musings. Our guest today is all the way from New England, Sharon Blosser. Hi, Karen.
Hello.
Welcome to Munira's Musings. And for those of you watching, welcome to our Monday show. We are showcasing Karen today because she is a nurse by profession, but has moved on to better healing strategies for her patients. We want to know what that is because, of course, allergy season is right around the corner and we want to know how to get better. For those of you listening, if you like this show, please go ahead, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And if you are on the cusp of whether you should start your own business or what is stopping you, this is a show for you where we showcase a person who is niche down and we talk to them about their journey to what they're doing right now, because I believe that niches are seasonal and they change over time, and who knows, right, what's going to be the next step for you. But if you're still on the verge of figuring out if this entrepreneurship is part of your life long journey, or do you even want to step into it, this show is for you. So welcome, and without further ado, let's talk to Karen. Karen, welcome again. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in the small state of Vermont, but love to travel, and so that influenced where I am today because I started as a nurse. I, as a child, was always the first one to help get somebody fixed up if they were injured. I'd run for the Band-Aid, and I thought my parents had chosen nursing for me, but I recently asked my mom and she said, no, it was you. It was all about you running to help other people. So I've always been a helper. And then I love optimism. I love finding the good news in any kind of situation. And so that has helped me in my life. I was a cheerleader, but I continue to be a cheerleader in other people's lives. And I've always been a problem solver and continue to be a person in my family that others will come to and say, what are we going to do? And I have that ability to step back and look at it.
So problem solver, cheerleader, and a helper.
Yep.
Right. Okay, so you said you were in nursing and you went into nursing. Why was that one of your first professions?
Well, at the time that I was looking at going to college, which was in the late 60s, early 70s, those were typical professions for women. You were either a nurse or you were an office worker or you were a teacher. So my oldest sister was a teacher, and so it was my job to be the nurse, and it worked out to be a good fit for me to start with because I like helping people. But what I realized is that I really enjoy helping people to help themselves. And so after 10 years of nursing, I realized that people were coming to me and expecting me to just fix things, and I really wanted to help them find their own way. I will say the one nursing job that was good for me was after I worked in the hospital, after I was a visiting nurse, I became the cardiac exercise nurse, and those were my people. They were very motivated to become well and to help themselves. And I thought, this is a good fit. But then I realized that overall, the profession gave me the ability to work with people and help them, but I really didn't like the dependence. I really wanted to help people to become self-sufficient. And so the next piece of the journey was, even though I had traveled to California because I like to travel around, but I didn't have money so I could go there and become a nurse, I wanted to go back home. So I went back to Vermont. It was not viable to be a nurse because the pay was so different. And at the same time, State Farm Insurance was looking for women to become agents. And so I talked with them and said, yeah, I can do this job. And it turned out to be a really good fit for me because I could give advice and help people. But if they didn't take my advice, it wouldn't kill them. And so I was able to say, look, here's what I recommend. And I didn't realize that I was using my intuition a lot during that. Here's what I recommend, and I will support you during that process, but you take this and go with it. So once I got back to Vermont, I became more in touch with a lot of the spiritual opportunities of learning there. The American Society for Dowsers is actually located in Lyndonville, Vermont. So I went to some, so I went to some dowsing classes and I learned about labyrinths then. I took Reiki classes because I was very intrigued with the whole energy and how we may be able to influence our own lives. I had my first experience with cancer in 1985. And in 1986, I was introduced to Dr. Bernie Siegel, who has helped. It started by helping little children imagine that chemotherapy was Pac-Man and killing their cancer cells. And those children did better than the children who didn't. So I said, oh, there may be something to this visualization. And so when I had my second cancer 11 years later, I was able to use that visualization. Mine was a very aggressive cell. My surgeon at Dartmouth Hitchcock had seen the cell only 3 other times, and the other 3 people were not living. So I was highly motivated to use whatever I could without becoming panicking. And that's when I became really interested in understanding that our minds control our bodies and that the message we give ourselves is taken and run with. So that started a lot of my education there. And then I moved to Connecticut with the job and went to the New England School of Feng Shui and learned Feng Shui and said, oh, we can welcome this energy and support it, or we can block it. And sometimes we are unintentionally doing that. And then 3 years ago, I moved back to New Hampshire and I really found my tribe, my people, because there are a lot of people involved in spiritual education and self-empowerment. And I took a class in mediumship, and now I'm still working with that group and should be in Peru right now on a spiritual journey, but it was postponed until April. So my journey was that I was always curious about energy and spiritual and being self-sufficient. It all centered around getting knowledge, because I do believe knowledge is power, and then doing something with it to help ourselves rather than feeling as though we're victims. And I end up being a resource. When you say, how did I come into this? For years, anytime I had my hands read, my palms read, a reading, I always heard, you are a healer, you are a healer. And I said, well, what am I supposed to be doing? And so it has just evolved so that I've become a resource for people who want to help themselves. And it ends up being a lot of times women who are in transition, who just need to find their confidence in listening to themselves and understanding that they have the power within them. And I love seeing that blossom in people, that you have the ability to do it. We just have to help you find it. You have to listen. So that's what I do in my practice, is I use different tools, and those tools are interviewing. I use dowsing, I use mediumship, and I very often will guide people by using what may be a traditional look at their life, by starting with what is their relationship to where they are in their life and where do they want to be, and how do you relate to money, and what's your money personality. And that's an easy place to sometimes get control. And then to go from there with whatever someone's goals are, I can support them in getting to those goals.
You've said a lot of things. Oh, wow. So you've done a lot of things. So let's go back to your nursing days. How many years? I mean, you studied and then you went to San Francisco. How long were you in San Francisco, and how long did your traditional nursing work?
Okay.
Like, how much time did you spend there?
I did a total of 10 years in nursing, 1 year in Vermont. And then I went to San Francisco. I worked at University of California, San Francisco in the hospital. No simple things. People came in with big bad things, and it frustrated me that no one was spending time helping them understand. So after 2 years there, I went into visiting nurse, and the rest of my time was in visiting nursing, helping people. Well, except for that last year, I was the cardiac exercise nurse. So total of 10 years, it took me to become totally frustrated with, if I care more about your wellness than you do, then we have a problem.
Okay, so why do you think people don't care about themselves? I mean, I am so I shouldn't be saying this, but I will, because I went through, my first husband was like that too. He was a diabetic. My father too, as well. My second husband too. They ate to live, not live to eat, right? They ate to live. They expected the doctors and the nurses to just magically cure them, right? And of course, you didn't have. I'm sorry, I'm sniffling because I have a cold, so please excuse me, for the viewers as well. But so that happened, and then there are some people that I see on an everyday basis, my friends and their husbands and family members, who have now decided that, you know what, I'm gonna die anyways, so might as well eat, right? So why is it that most people have this mentality and not take care of themselves, and that frustrates you to no end? I can see that already. So do you have some kind of can you shed some light on this?
I have a couple of thoughts on it because I struggle with it myself. I do believe that we come into this life to address challenges. I think we choose our challenges before. I do believe in reincarnation. And I think that we choose our challenges. When we have learned our lessons, we can move on and we no longer have to be here. So I believe that it is the imperfection of just being human that manifests itself in different ways. And for some of us, it is, we know a lot of times that we're doing things that aren't wrong, but either it's too difficult, we don't have the courage to make that change. It feeds into that downward spiral of, I don't feel good about myself. And so that leads to dis-ease and reaching out to say somebody has to take care of it for me, when I don't think that we've really learned yet that we have that control. We have some control. There are obviously some organic things that go wrong that get our attention, but we could support ourselves a lot better. It's an age-old question. It's an age-old question, and there's no
and I was going to say that, because here's what I see. I'm middle-aged, right? And I see that the younger generation, my kids, right, they do not want sugar in their house. They have brown sugar instead of white sugar. Excuse me. Then they have honey. They have hardly any bread at home, and they're always eating healthy. Smaller meals, more protein, more vegetables, more filling stuff, right? And I have a granddaughter who just turned 1, and her mother is always feeding her cauliflower rice compared to white rice, brown rice compared to anything else. And our Indian cooking is laden with oil, right? And we're not going to go there, but I'm just telling you. So the thing is, the younger generation they go hiking, they are more into, let's go take a walk. 2-mile walk is nothing for them, while we, as in middle age, will think about it. Oh, should I go? It's cold out there. And we'll always find excuses, myself included, right? So my question then is, are we the generation that was lost because nobody told us? Or are we the generation that have a food attraction problem, or the food, where we are attracted so much to the food and we are not paying attention to what we eat, one, and how we use food for our well-being? Is that something that you see?
I think that has a lot of validity there. We are a transition generation, because when you were growing up, I can't speak for you, I can only speak for me. We had all natural foods, and there were no mixes or prepared foods until maybe close to like between my ages 5 and 10. And then women started going to the workforce. The company started developing foods that were fast and easy and additives. Do you know that in a lot of food manufacturing places, there is someone who develops the tasting? And a lot of our food is designed so that we are never really satisfied. We always want more. That is part of the food in the prepared section. So just when I say knowledge is power, it's becoming aware of that. Some of it, for a lot of people I've worked with, it's an emptiness that they feel, and they try to fill it with food. And then the third piece that I would say is, we need to just take charge of our lives. It's like I had to have a little talk with myself when I turned 65 to say, you need to take at least as good care of your body as you do your car. And that's what I do talk with people now about, is like, look, if you expect something to perform, then you need to maintain it. And the body is no different. And that's maintaining physically, spiritually, emotionally. Food is a part of it, but sometimes food is an easy distraction or detraction. So it's a big question mark, but I think the way food is prepared, I think your kids are on the right track, and it will go back. So we're transition stage, because these next generations coming up have learned, they're aware of it, and they're putting it into practice to go back to where it was before I was born.
Oh, and that makes a good point. Okay, so that was just a sidetrack, but it was more informative. So let's go back to your thing. You went into Feng Shui and you said dowsing, but can you explain a little bit about what dowsing is? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I have actually, I'm holding a pendulum, oddly enough, no coincidences, right? So I can ask the pendulum to show me a yes, and it goes around in a circle counterclockwise. And I can ask it to show me a no, and it goes counterclockwise. So you can use a tool like this, or I teach people where they can just stand, close their eyes, put their attention where their guides are, which is back here, and ask the guides to show a yes. And for me, I get pushed forward. And if I ask to be shown a no, I get pulled back. So there are tools. That's one of the tools that I teach people. You can also douse just with your fingers. Put your fingers together and try to pull them apart and say, please show me a yes. I have a hard time pulling apart. Please show me a no, and it comes apart easily. So
no is easy.
It's easier. If I say no, it's easier, right? So these are some of the tools. Dowsing can give you a yes or a no. I also have dowsing sticks where I can ask it to spell if there's a spirit or a guide visiting. I can ask it to please tap out your name, and it will tap out A, B, C, D, E, F. It stops at F. And then I say, please show me the next letter, and it goes on. I mean, that's just being open okay. to what is there and what the energy is doing.
Okay, so you got into more traditional medicine after the nursing, right? And what was your first, like when you were a cardiac nurse, and when you decided, okay, enough of this, people don't want to take care of themselves, I'm gonna go back to the East. You did. And you did.
Sorry.
That's okay. So you went back to East and you decided, okay, I'm going to learn something new. What was the first, I mean, how did that new step? The reason I ask is because there's so many people who are stuck in their professions or in their, you know, they're now willing to take a next step, but they don't know, or nothing has come forth that they can make that next step. So what do you think, or what was the first thing that you felt that I should go into the school of Feng Shui or this or that? What was the first reaction? How did you know? I mean,
when I was in college, I went to see a clairvoyant and just thought it was fascinating. And so I was open to, I think that's the first step. Be open to, there's something bigger than us. There's something bigger than us. And listen. For example, I think we all get messages, but we don't always listen. How many times have you been ready to leave your home and your eye falls on your umbrella and you're like, huh, I wonder why I'm looking at that? You're probably going to need that umbrella later and you're going to say, I should have picked it up. Listen, that's the first thing. Just be open to learning something new. You have to try different things to find something that fits, because you're not always going to connect with the people who are giving the message. So there's a lot out there, even if you go into a store that has spiritual things in it. It has stones, it has crystal balls, it has incense, it has oils. Just be open to any programs that facility may be offering. I found some classes even through community college and the community evening classes. It's like, just pay attention and listen, and we'll start hearing patterns. I truly do believe that we have soul tribes, that we have had past lives and have been in contact with other people. And that is my reason for why sometimes I'll meet someone and I feel as if I know them. I'm attracted to them, and there's no reason for that. On the other side of it, I sometimes meet people and I feel a real aversion. They bother me a lot, and there's no really good reason for it. And maybe it's a cop-out, but I don't think it is, to say, I think I knew these people before. I mean, what happens to me on a lot, I probably 4 times a year. To me, that's a lot in my lifetime, where someone says, I know you, don't I know you? And I say, maybe. Did you ever live in California? Are you from Vermont? I usher at the local theater. And they're like, no. I mean, the man at the bakery here in Concord last year or before COVID, I said, good morning. He said, I know you, don't I? I said, maybe from this, from that. He goes, no, from way back. And I went, oh, here we go. This is another soul that I knew in another life, and we don't understand why, but we know each other. So I think be open to trying something different, even though you go, oh, I don't know, this is really weird. It's that, it's not just us in this universe. It isn't just us.
Okay, point noted. Sometimes it's a scary thought, right? But sometimes you just have to be open-minded, right?
Well, Munira, sometimes you go, oh, that's a coincidence, like I had the dowsing. I was playing with the dowsing tool. It's like, sometimes we'll go, oh, that's quite a coincidence. Really? Do you think it was? Or do you think it's a message where you're supposed to be listening?
Yeah, so it depends on people, right? And you don't know what each message is going to give you, but it's something that you need to pay attention to, like you said. And the thing is, sometimes, like for those people who are sitting there thinking about what my next step is, or how I'm going to take the next step, or what am I going to do now, if they listened, and I call it tuning in, because if you're tuned in, the people will come to you. And if you know what problems you're solving, then those people will come to you and you'll know the answer. And that's going to be part of your calling for the next phase in your life. Okay, so perfect. Now, tell us how people can find you.
People can find me. I'll just put my little card. I have a little business card here. They can find me at kblosserconsulting@yahoo.com.
Okay.
I don't have a website yet. It's most of my business is through referrals and it, and coincidences. I listen a lot of times. I'll go, well, what did you say? What is that about? People will find what they need for a resource. So that's how they would find me.
And that's the thing, right? Those of you listening and still on the fence about, or you've already found your niche, but you already know your calling, but you haven't niched it down totally. You need to pay attention to what people are saying, what you are thinking, what people are talking about, because the minute you tune in, it's like those old radios, right? Where my father had this old Philips radio where he would have to so fine tune it so that we could hear that perfect song that would come through. And the message on Saturday nights was always a story that was amazing. And we always wanted to hear what they were going to say. What's the next chapter? And the fact is that you always want to be tuned into that, because you never know who needs you at that particular time. And you've heard of people saying, oh, being in the right place at the right time. But I'll tell you one thing, you got to be tuned in to listen to the people so that you are in the right place at the right time.
Well, I do. And I also help people reframe things. And I think this helps anyone who's trying to find their calling, is when something happens, especially the negative things, say, oh, I wonder why that happened. There's always something that's going to come out of it. There are no coincidences. I mean, for instance, I've been snow skiing for now 64 years, maybe longer. 3 years ago, I broke my leg. First time I was injured, I was in Colorado, and it was a stupid thing, but I had surgery, and when I found out I needed to have surgery, I had a CD on my phone that is called Successful Surgery. Bella Ruth Neperstak is another person who helps with visualizing. So when I had a hip replaced, I listened to that 3 weeks before surgery. There's a piece to listen to during surgery. There's healing affirmations after. Doesn't hurt, and you're telling your body what to do. So I listened to that during surgery. The day after surgery, the orthopedic surgeon's assistant came in and said, oh, what are you listening to? I said, oh, healing affirmations. And she goes, what is that? So I had her go to the website healthjourneys.com and to look at the programs. And I said, look, you give us an iPad with Netflix on it. Why aren't you giving us some visualizations about healing and pain control and all that? So she came back the next day and said, I talked with the team and we're going to integrate that into our program. So I said, that's the reason that I broke my leg, is so that now this group can help many others. And that my surgeon would say to me, he says, I don't think I've ever met anybody like you. Everyone who gets hurt is like negative, but you're like positive about it. I went, negativity impedes healing. And, look, it brought us together. And he goes, you need to take this message out there. And I said, well, have me come in and talk to your people. I'll help them, which hasn't happened yet. But you see, that was a bad thing. I could have said, oh, bummer, my first day of a whole week of skiing, I broke my leg. But instead, I said, I met some really nice people, had some good food, and now they're going to start using this healing visualization in their program.
No coincidences, like you said. Well, thank you so much.
You're
And
welcome.
And the thing is, people are going to listening to your show, to our show, and you can share it to your websites and your people. And we never know where this is going to go, right? So take it to the next level. And for those people, right, this is a story of Karen. And Karen was a nurse. She still is a nurse, but she's just practicing it in a different traditional way. But this is a story of Karen. So let's talk about you. If you're listening to this segment, what's your story going to be? How are you going to shape your past and to your future and see what you can take from all the skills that you've accumulated to what you're bringing to the table today? And if you're stuck, there's so many people out there who can help you. But what I'm asking you to do is take the first step and reach out to inside of you to see what you can do for another person, because it is in giving that you receive. And this is the word of the Lord as well. So, go ahead, take the next step and reach out, because you don't know what's waiting for you and who is waiting for you. So until next week, it was a fun segment. Karen, thank you so much for being here.
You. It was fun.
And yeah, until next week, when we have another person we are showcasing with their niches, go ahead, take the next step and make a difference in somebody else's life. Have a good week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Munira's Musings with your host, Munira Zahabi. If you enjoyed our show, please share and subscribe to this channel. And for more content, please join our Facebook group.